Hello there everybody and welcome to my Metroid Prime Fusion Hard 100% Scans and Items PAL Guide. God, that's a bit of a mouthful. Anyway, this is something that I did a while back, like years ago. This was before I actually started making like proper YouTube videos. And this was like the first project I had where I thought, I really like Metroid Prime, I'm just going to jump in and do a hard playthrough whilst getting 100% of items and scans and everything, and do a little bit of a guide on it. Back then, YouTube annotations existed, where I could put little comments, and that would guide you through and, help you with, like, what to do and how to do things. However, now YouTube annotations have disappeared for good. When I made these, they removed the function to make annotations, like shortly after, so I had to really rush to get this out. And now, as at time of recording, they've disappeared forever. So my previous guide is pretty much superfluous, it's a video with no annotations. As such, I'm doing this again, but now with audio commentary, in order to guide you through. Now, this isn't a speedrun. This isn't a guide on how to speedrun the game. However, I do incorporate some certain speedrun tricks and techniques in order to be able to have a fun run. Because I'm a speedrunner, I love like tricks and glitches and skips and things like that. I find them really enjoyable to do. As such, I've tried to incorporate them into this run, some of which actually make it easier because it is a hard mode run, which, obviously isn't the easiest thing to do, and some of which are just there because they're cool. I'm not going to say which are for coolness and which are for ease, but, you'll probably see some things and think, well, that was a bit pointless, and it's probably just done because I think it's cool. Anyway, this first video is going to be on the Space Pirate Frigate. The Space Pirate Frigate is actually really straightforward, so there's actually very little to talk about, but, I'll try my best and give some commentary as I go, and we'll see how that goes. One thing you'll notice, as you can see from this cutscene, is that I've hooked it up to Metroid Fusion. If you hook the game up to Metroid Fusion, then you can unlock the Fusion suit. I only really did this because looking at certain videos online, normally people do it in the normal outfit, and I thought, hell, I'll be a little bit different, I'll include the fusion suit, because, well, honestly I just think it looks cool. So, here we go. Let's get cracking. I'm not going to give you a guide on actually how to get through the game, to be honest. I will give you a guide with things like, bosses or certain areas and how to get through it, because it's hard mode. But certain things like, this for example, you've got to shoot the buttons and use R to aim to get the buttons at the top. I'm not going to do that because at the end of the day, it's pretty basic. If you're playing through trying to get 100% on hard mode, I reckon chances are you've probably played this game before. And if you've played this game before, you pretty much know what's what. Now, one thing to mention right off the bat is that with 100%, you don't actually have to scan everything. You only have to fill your logbook. So anything that says logbook entry complete is necessary. Anything that doesn't, like to open doors or just random shit, you don't have to bother with. Also, you only have to scan things once. So if you've scanned a pirate, for example, you don't need to scan them again unless it's a different type of pirate. Which, means that you can prioritize certain things, so you're only scanning like the easiest one to do. For example, like with gun turrets, which you'll see in a moment, the gun turrets, they take off a lot of health and they can be pretty hard to avoid. As such, one thing that I do is I don't scan it until a bit later on. I do scan it in the Pirate Frigate, but I don't scan it until later when I can get, a good clean shot at it without, risking too much of my life. Anyway, going through this door, we enter the main part of the labs, and coming up, we've got some space pirates and stuff, but you don't have to worry about scanning those. You know, in fact, I don't even remember if they're scannable or not. I think you just scan them and it just says random shit. They might be scannable, but to be honest, I don't think now's the best place for it. You face loads of pirates throughout the game, so don't worry. One thing you do need to worry about though is that computer. You'll see that the computers mostly have orange squares on them, but that one has a red square. Now, anything like that which has a red square is basically something you have to scan. So if you get a computer with like an orange thing, it'll just be random shit. If you get a computer with a red square, then it'll be important information like a pirate entry or something about, Talon 4 or whatever. Anyway, something relating to hard mode, I use the morph ball there, mainly because if you stand and you try to kill them, you're just going to lose a lot of health. So I just morph ball past them. Same with the pirates a little bit later on. Don't bother with them. One thing that's easy to miss as well is ammo pickups and health pickups. Like later in the game, you'll tend to get larger pickups and better pickups. So early on in the game, when you've got the smaller ones, it's probably worth scanning them as and when you get something new, because you don't want to get to a certain point in the game where it becomes really difficult. As for stuff like enemies and turrets, like I'm doing, just try and dash, pick them off, do what you can. Again, scan the health thing there before I pick it up. You'll find that pretty early on in the game, like in the Pirate Frigate, you'll be relatively low on health for most of it, and that's because, it's quite hard to avoid every shot. And, don't stress about it. The level's not that difficult. As long as you're fairly cautious and doing what I'm doing and trying to use walls for cover, you'll be fine. Don't worry about it too much. Even when it comes to the boss, which we've got in just a moment, the Parasite Queen, again, isn't really that difficult. I mean, I'm going to a boss fight with 35 health, which, you'd think would be quite a risky thing, but the boss is quite simple. The important thing, of course, is just to remember to scan the bloody thing. If you miss the Parasite Queen, you won't face another. Like with all the bosses in this game, when you get to a boss, scan it, because if you miss it, you've buggered up basically, and you'll have to restore from the last save point. As for the boss itself, pretty much following the main strat is the main thing. Just scan it, find an opening, take care of it. There's nothing really that much else to do. Personally, I find that missiles take off a reasonable amount of health, so I pepper it with all my missiles, and then just finish it off with charge shots. I mean, using all my missiles, you can pretty much do that. One thing to bear in mind is that if you press the Y button or the missile button and then press A to fire a shot, it'll reset your gun. So you can slide off Y and press A and then go back and press Y again, and you've effectively got rapid fire missiles. So instead of having a slow firing missile launcher, you can just pepper them off pretty fast. I mean, I wasn't doing it the fastest, but I was still doing it to a reasonably, fast degree, and it just takes out the boss a little bit faster. It's not necessary. Some of the later bosses, you'll find that strategy definitely works. However, with the Parasite Queen, because she's so easy, if you take a little bit of extra time, it doesn't really matter. One thing I'd bear in mind as well with this section post Parasite Queen, where you have to escape before it explodes. Of course it's a space station exploding, it's a Metroid game. I would personally use the map for navigation. Some of the tight corridors like that can be a little bit difficult to find if you're using the kind of obtuse controls that the game has, and you'll find you'll just start walking into a wall, so I'd use a map. As for, the stuff, you notice I scanned a control panel just really to deactivate the turret. That's something you can do a couple of points during this escape. Make sure you do it, makes it into a little bit easier. In these tunnels, you'll also find these little bug things, these parasite things. Make sure you scan them. You won't find them anywhere else in the game, I don't believe. I think maybe there's one point when you come back to the Space Pirate Frigate that maybe you see them, but I don't quite remember. But either way, it's not an enemy that you'll see frequently, so make sure that you scan it. As soon as you see them, scan them. You know, there's a couple of them, you know, during this point. I mean, this is what, the third batch I've seen? So if you don't get the full scan in the first batch, you can always get it the second or third time, so don't worry about it too much. Similarly, this is the point I mentioned earlier with the turret. Because this corridor is relatively safe to scan them from, you can stand back, scan them, and then go forward a bit and pick them off. You've got some pretty good cover here, so there's not really much to worry about. But, you know, aside from that, this section's pretty straightforward. Use your morph ball and just get through it. Personally, I use the morph ball bombs to activate the doors because, you know, unmorphing, shooting, morphing again, it's a little bit of a pain in the ass, isn't it? So, just morph ball bomb. It'll be fine. It's not something that's necessary either for, you know, completion or, you know, just doing hard mode. So do what you want. Like with most of the frigate, playing through it isn't really that hard. There is something noticeable coming up. When I go around the corner, I'll be entering the section with Ridley. This is a part where you don't lose your items just yet, but you'll see there are some grapple points up ahead which show you how to use a grapple beam. Now, for some reason, and I have no idea why, they can't be scanned. If you try and scan them, it just gives you random information, and it makes no sense. Like, what I'll do here is I'll scan it, and you'll see it doesn't count as a logbook entry. So don't be fooled in thinking, oh, I've scanned them here, I don't need to scan them later. You do. If you scan them here, it just gives you some random shit saying, in combat visor, use L, and you'll fling yourself across. So it's not a logbook entry. You will need to scan it later on. Now, stuff like doors and things you can scan whenever you want, but, you know, I just scan them later, it's fine. But once you do here, you activate the cutscene where you lose all your upgrades, and you make your way to the ship. There's nothing really much else to say, so to be honest, I'll end the commentary here. I'll leave you to watch the rest of the cutscene in peace, and yeah, I'll see you next time. Next time we'll get to Talon 4, and that's when stuff really starts happening. That's when you'll see some proper tricks and, you know, we'll get some real scans in. And we'll face some real difficulty. So, see you next time. Bye.